Welcome to the Thoughtful Leader podcast. My name is Ben Brearley. I'm a leadership coach and the founder of Thoughtful Leader. The Thoughtful Leader podcast is all about short, sharp leadership advice because thoughtful leadership is good leadership. Welcome to episode 219 of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. In this episode, we're going to tackle one of my favorite topics, which is growing your leadership confidence. And I'm going to talk about 4 steps that I think are really important to go through to build that confidence up. It's one of the areas I love working with leaders the most. Nothing gives me more satisfaction than seeing a leader growing confidence after working with them and going through and tackling some of their tough situations that make them feel low on confidence or nervous about leadership. Okay, let's get into it right now. Now, I work with many leaders who tell me they want to feel more confident. It's a very common challenge, and that's why in this episode I'm going to take a look at the critical steps needed to grow your confidence. And it's not surprising that many leaders struggle in this area. After all, leadership involves stepping forward and putting yourself in the spotlight to some degree, and that can make us feel quite vulnerable. We see all the amazing accomplishments posted on platforms like LinkedIn, and it's very easy to start to think, why don't I feel like that or do those amazing things in my leadership role? But never fear, we can navigate the churning waters of leadership and have you feeling confident on the other side. And there's a couple of other podcasts and articles I'll link to during this episode, including number 90, Beating Leadership Imposter Syndrome. You can go listen to that one. I'll put all these links in the show notes page, thoughtfulleader.com/219. I've also got a link to my Leadership Confidence online course, which is a really handy collection of tools and techniques and questions to ask yourself to try to dig deeper into this area. And I've got a discount code which is valid until the end of June this year. And the link to that will be in the show notes page, thoughtfulleader.com/219 as well, but I'll talk more about that later. Okay, so let's start introducing the 4 steps that I believe are critical to being able to grow your confidence. But before I do, these aren't meant to be easy. This isn't a follow this foolproof program and build muscle in 30 days type of thing. If it was, you wouldn't really build confidence, and we'll talk more about that later on. So in summary, the 4 steps are awareness, which is understanding and acknowledging a potential area where you're lacking in confidence. Then there's preparation, doing the work to help you get closer to bridging the confidence gap. Then there's discomfort, which is testing yourself by going through some pain and discomfort and coming out the other side. And lastly, there's reflection, taking some time to think about the process you went through and capturing the key learnings. Now that sounds simple, and that's because it is. So let's go through the steps one by one. And I've obviously made these steps intentionally generic because we're going to be talking about lots of different confidence situations here. Every leader will be different. So I didn't want to make a very prescriptive set of steps because they wouldn't really match. So they're generic enough for you to apply, hopefully, to your leadership situation. Now, the first step is awareness, and this is all about becoming aware of your confidence problem. This seems obvious, but there are a few important points to note here. Firstly, awareness requires acknowledgement and acceptance that there is a problem. For leaders that are ego-driven or insecure, this can be a challenge because it means admitting that you have leadership flaws or limitations. Now, secondly, it's important to pay attention to the specific areas in which you are lacking in confidence. It's not good enough to say, I don't feel confident about my leadership, because we can't do much with that. It's about identifying specific situations, tasks, or environments that bring out our feelings of insecurity and lack of confidence. It's unlikely that you will feel insecure in every aspect of leadership, but it is very likely that there will be specific aspects that make you feel the most vulnerable. And when I work with coaching clients in this area, we start off talking about leadership confidence and people telling me that they feel like they need to build that confidence. But then very quickly we get into the specific areas where they lack in confidence. And after a while, we stop talking about confidence. We actually start talking about trying to address the challenges in that area that they've mentioned. And before you know it, they're feeling more confident by addressing these specific areas. So how do you cultivate awareness to grow your confidence? Well, there's several ways to do this, and one way is through the use of psychometric tools, and these include assessments like DISC, PRINT, MBTI or Myers-Briggs, Clifton Strengths or Hogan assessments. Now, there are many of these tools and they all provide useful insights in one way or another, but they don't tell you exactly where you're lacking in confidence. And I've put a link to all these tools in the show notes page as well, thoughtfleader.com/219. So instead, these tools will provide insight into your strengths, motivations, and tendencies, which can highlight potential areas where you might struggle. Now, they can give you the aha moment that confirms your suspicions, and you might find yourself saying, oh, so that's why I feel so uncomfortable in that situation. Now, one of my own examples comes from the print assessment that I use, and one of my core unconscious motivators, which is called in the print language, which comes out of this assessment, is peace and harmony. Now, this means I enjoy going with the flow and accepting people and things as they are. Now, these are good characteristics in many leadership situations, but they can also be a problem when it comes to leadership. In leadership, you'll need to engage in conflict, make decisions, and push for change. So going with the flow and accepting situations as they are do not reinforce these aspects of leadership. Now, that doesn't mean I can't lead effectively. It just means I need to be very conscious of whether I'm avoiding conflict or settling for things that I shouldn't be accepting. And if I find myself suffering from a lack of confidence which leads me to avoid conflict or settle, this can be a sign that I need to do work in this area. And one way you can also improve your leadership confidence by helping you understand a bit more about what makes yourself tick is to understand your values. And I've got an article that relates to that on the show notes page about why you need to know your values in leadership, so check that one out too. So you don't necessarily need to use tools or assessments to guide you in this confidence building process. Instead, you can simply observe your environment and take note of any factors that you struggle with. So in particular, notice the times when you feel insecure, stressed, overly worried or anxious, or demonstrate avoidant tendencies. Now, you may notice these at various times, including when you're dealing with certain people or when you're being part of certain work situations or events such as meetings or other forums, or it could be when you're working on specific tasks or projects, or when you're working within certain environments. Now, when you notice these low confidence emotions, ask yourself the question, what specifically is it about this situation that makes me feel like I'm lacking confidence? Now, this question is a useful one and will help you to pinpoint potential solutions in the next step of the process. And I mentioned earlier that Leadership Confidence online course. It's heavily discounted to only 49 Australian dollars, which is actually really good. It's more than half price at the moment until the end of June. So you can click on the link in the show notes page and you can get that discounted price. The reason I'm mentioning it here is because it has a bunch of different questions and introspective activities to help you run through and really identify where your confidence issues might lie. But let's move on to step 2, growing your confidence with preparation. Some people advocate the sink or swim approach of being thrown in the deep end of a challenging task or situation. And this can be a great way to build confidence, but obviously it comes with a risk. And the risk is that if you don't manage to swim, you might find yourself feeling even worse afterwards. Now, damaging your confidence in this way can take years to overcome. So instead of this high risk, high reward approach, I generally suggest something a little more moderate. And that's why the second step is to prepare yourself for facing your confidence challenge. Suitable preparation will, of course, depend on the area in which you're trying to grow your confidence. So when I was studying at university, I discovered I was petrified of public speaking. And when I was forced to do it, I was terrible at it. My voice shook, I read from a page of notes and hardly looked up. Now at that point, I took the avoidant approach. That is, I'd try to avoid public speaking at any cost. Once, I even transferred out of a class because I found out one of the assignments involved giving a presentation. Now when I started working, I still hadn't really acknowledged this as a big problem. Now the problem only became obvious to me when I started working in a large consulting company. As a consultant, you would often need to deliver presentations or briefings, and being able to deliver these well was really helpful because it improved your reputation both internally and with clients. Now, when I realized this was going to hold me back, I joined a Toastmasters club where I could improve my public speaking. This helped me learn how to do it better, and most importantly, gave me a lot of practice time in a supportive environment. Now, obviously, your preparation will depend on the area in which you'd like to grow your confidence. And I'd suggest looking at the following options. You could attend relevant training courses online or in person. You can be coached or mentored by a supportive person. You can research tools and techniques that could help you. You could try role-playing situations such as job interviews or dealing with a critical person with a supportive partner. You could join a relevant club or group, or practice skills or techniques that will help you feel more confident. And the choice is up to you, and you might opt to combine several of these methods. So keep in mind what you are preparing for too, which is the focus for the next step. And there's a related article I'd advise you to check out as well. Leadership confidence problem, let's diagnose it. That's a good one to check out in the show notes page too. Now, step 3 is discomfort. You learn the most when you step out of your comfort zone. The idea is that the preparation from the previous step will help you to handle the pressure. Unfortunately, when things are easy, you don't tend to learn as much. You might feel confident when you've been living on easy street for a long time, but when you're tested is when you'll really find out how good you are. Now, going back to my previous example with public speaking, my discomfort moment was when I was at work delivering presentation to clients. I felt confident enough to do this because of the preparation I'd put in at Toastmasters. Now, if you lack confidence leading meetings, your discomfort zone might be when you need to lead an important one at work with lots of senior people in the room. Or if you feel vulnerable having difficult conversations, your discomfort might be when you finally choose to have that hard conversation with the underperforming team member. Pushing through the discomfort is a critical step, and on the other side, you'll feel better that you tried. And most importantly, you'll be able to say to yourself, I did it, even if it doesn't go perfectly. Now, without discomfort, you'll never feel that satisfaction and you'll never be tested. So what's your discomfort situation that will help you grow your confidence? Now, step 4, which is a very thoughtful leader step in the process, is to grow your confidence through reflection. Now, after you've pushed through the discomfort and emerged from the other side, it's important to reflect on what you've been through. Some useful questions to ask yourself include things like, how did I feel before, and how was it different to how I feel about the situation now? Secondly, you could ask, was my preparation useful, or was there something I could have added to improve my ability to handle the discomfort? Thirdly, what are you most proud of? What would you like to do better? And last, what else could you do to grow your confidence even further? So reflection is a useful practice to help you learn from your experiences, both good and bad. You might find that there are a whole lot of new challenges you're focusing on now after you've grown in confidence, and it's important to be able to look back and see how far you've come, rather than to only look forward to the next challenge. So just some final points to remember here. I find it useful to focus on these steps to grow confidence rather than just leaving it to chance, and it's worth remembering that even though you might feel like you lack leadership confidence in general, it's usually specific triggers that will have you feeling the most vulnerable. Remember also that your preparation does not need to be perfect. It just needs to be good enough to take the next step and put yourself through some discomfort. And without discomfort, you'll never really be tested, and being tested is how you know how far you've come. It's an interesting mindset shift when you are going through a challenge and you're feeling uncomfortable and you're pushing yourself through that barrier. You can actually reflect on that and go, hey, this is actually helping me to get better and build confidence, and that can help you to keep going and feel better about the situation. And lastly, reflection is important to embed the learning so you can do things better next time or simply feel good about what you have achieved. So I wish you the best of luck in your confidence journey. There'll be some discomfort along the way, I can assure you, but that's all part of the process. And once again, I just want to remind you about that Leadership Confidence online course. If you click the link in the show notes page, you'll get more than 50% off the course until the end of June 2023. The show notes page was thoughtfulleader.com/219. Okay, thank you very much for listening. And as usual, if you have a few minutes and you like this podcast or the episode in general, I'd love you to leave a positive review on your podcast player of choice. It really helps me get the word out about Thoughtful Leader and try to help people around the world with their leadership. Okay, that's enough from me today. I wish you the best of luck in growing your confidence, and I'll be back next week.